I'm Victor Tiffany, the co-founder of Citizens Against Plutocracy, uh, talking today with Rick Gallant. Did I get the name right this time, Rick? Rick Gallant.
There you go.
There I go. Rick Gallant. He's the candidate for Democratic primary here in the 23rd Congressional District of New York, the congressional district I live in. I wanted to follow up our previous conversation with a conversation about the process that I went through, and you were on the other side of my asking you and other candidates, which I'm going to brush over quickly, to sign the contract for American Renewal. So this started about 3 months ago, Rick, and at that time, you declined to sign the contract. Would you tell our activists out there why at first you did not want to sign the contract for American Renewal?
Sure. There was a couple things. One thing, there was way too many points, I thought. Not that I couldn't live with them, but there were so many different ones, and I don't remember even what all the rest of them were. And then the second part was I was concerned about having to have exclusive laws that I would support that weren't a part of another one. So the exclusivity kind of bothered me a little bit. For instance, if we're going to ban offshore drilling and we want to throw that into a bill that may increase taxes on Wall Street, I felt like that was something I would be okay with. But the way I read it was the exclusivity of the viewpoints was something that I was a little nervous about.
And then, just a few weeks ago, I came back around again after having asked every other candidate in this race for the Democratic primaries. There are no third-party candidates running, to my knowledge, in this congressional district. So it's going to be a Democrat and a Republican, possibly a write-in candidate, none of whom I'm aware of. So it's going to be a Democrat and a Republican from the looks of it. I came around this time having modified the contract to eliminate one of the tax increases and replace it with a criminal justice plank, basically calling for an independent investigator in the use of police lethal force, which I just read today happened 970 some times last year. So police killed somebody in the line of duty. So we replaced that platform, and then this time you did sign it. Can you explain why this time around you went ahead to sign the contract?
Because as I mentioned earlier, Victor, everything on here are things that I already espouse, profess to believe in, whether it be the minimum wage, whether it be Social Security cap going up, whether it be environmental issues, whether it be college loans and tuition issues, whether it be single-payer health care, all of those things. I have always, every place I go, I talk about those things. And from the very beginning, when I announced May 22nd, those are the things that have been at the forefront of everything I talk about.
So we encouraged you to reduce the number of positions on the template, the CFAR template that's on our website, from the 11 that are out there down to 4 to 6. You chose 7, which is fine. And just to explain, the reason we do that is because while each and every individual issue on the template has large, vast majority support, if you create a Venn diagram of all of them, right, that overlap gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and pretty soon you have less than 50% of the public supporting all 11 issues. So we actually encourage candidates to reduce that number and keep that majority greater than 50%, which is what you're going to need for the general election. You only need 30% or even less than that to win the primary. If these 6 to 8 candidates remain in the race, you could actually win the primary with 20% of the vote.
Right. And the other thing, Victor, and I think it's important, since you guys are a nationwide organization, is that district by district, we're very different. And because you live in this district, that even from one side to the other, this district is extremely diverse in many, many ways. And so I think it's important that we speak to everyone's issues. And it doesn't do us any good to speak to one end or the other if we're not going to get elected. So we need to really speak to kind of the issues that everyone has a concern about.
This has been a process where I asked you the first time. You were off in Washington, D.C. I think you went to a school for progressives or something like that. Why don't you tell people what you went to in Washington?
I did. I went to the PCCC workshop, which is a progressive deal. I was sent there actually on the recommendation of the New York State United Teachers, which, again, I'm on their board of directors. I also met with the American Federation of Teachers people who have endorsed me. And since then, the National Education Association has also endorsed me. So what we did is we listened to Elizabeth Warren, Keith Ellison, progressives from around the country, and talked. There were about 300 of us, and talked together. People that were running from offices from county treasurer to Congress, and so it was a great group. It was I don't want to say single-minded, but I would say very like-minded, in that we all had the idea that we want to be progressive, but we want to serve the people that we serve.
That sounds great. I think next time you have one of those, I'll come down with you with a stack of contracts to have people sign during the session.
That's not a bad idea right there, actually.
Yeah, your video might be frozen. It's moving a little bit. Maybe things will catch up. Otherwise, okay, you're live now. Why don't you just sort of offer your perspective on this process that you and I went through? That I asked. Actually, it was somebody in your campaign initially if you would sign it, and then at some point that came back that no, not at this point. And then I came around again later. Why don't you offer people like me around the country who are speaking to candidates like yourself, your perspective on this process?
Well, Victor, it's a daunting process, full process, first of all. And we get a lot of people that come at us. We get a lot of questionnaires. We get a lot of surveys. We get a lot of groups that we're filling out surveys for, and this and that. And as we sorted through all of that stuff, the progressive movement right now is got a lot of steam. The progressive movement comes from a lot of different places, too. There's a lot of different ways to identify it. I have always thought of myself as progressive. As a teacher, you have to be, because you deal with those kinds of things every day. Some of the other things I'm not quite so progressive at, but socially for sure. So we went through the process and looked at everything, and you and I talked a few times, and we whittled down the list to things that I am 100% behind, that I felt that you guys are a group that I would love to be associated with, and I'm very, very pleased that I am.
Well, we're also pleased that you are. So let's just be hypothetical, because from our perspective, and maybe hopefully from your perspective, it worked this time. Of course, we'll know better in June if it really worked. But from your perspective, again, this is hypothetical because you signed. What might have turned you off? I mean, I can think of lots of things: crass, crude language on my part, disrespect on my part. I can think of a lot of things that might have turned you off. But try to be sort of outside of the box and just think, how might I have approached this in a way that would have turned you off? What could have I had said that you might have made you go, oh, I'm not going to sign this. This guy's a jerk, or whatever.
Well, so from my perspective, as you research all these things, that's the first thing. You go back and you see what these groups are, and I say these groups, of which CFAR would be one of, in quotes, these groups. And you research everything, and you see the kinds of people that are associated with them, and I think that's really important. And yours is a positive. And so, because, as you know, Victor, there's lots of groups, one way or another, trying to get candidates as part of their platform for reasons that might be selfish to them, as opposed to, again, I mentioned before, the good of the whole. And so I really feel that as we have spoken over, it's been, since the summertime, if I'm not mistaken. As we have spoken since the summertime, you and I have had lots of discussions. I think that we have come to realize from both sides that your standpoint and your perspective and my perspective are very, very similar. We may not always go about it the same way, but they're very, very similar. And I think that's the key. I coached for many, many years. And one of the things that I used to always tell everybody is that one of the keys is to everybody pull on the rope in the same direction at the same time. And I think this is one of those situations where we have many more people pulling on the rope, and they're pulling on the same direction. They're pulling on at the same time. So I'm very pleased.
Well, we didn't mention it, and I haven't really discussed it at any great length with you, but for the people out there like myself, the CFAR activists, one thing we can bring to candidates like you is a large amount of support, because my organization has a large list of supporters of Bernie Sanders that we've accumulated during the 2016 primaries, people who pledged their support for Bernie Sanders. We were the organization behind that. And so we have all those email addresses. And now that you've signed, we will be sending out a blast. Unfortunately, our data is arranged by state, not congressional district. So we will be sending out a blast to everyone in New York State, which is all right at this point, because you're the only CFAR candidate in New York State. And we'll be asking them to go to your website, donate to your campaign. We'll point to the other interview that we just completed that will give them an indication more about why you signed the contract and so forth. So that's something that activists, CFAR activists around the country, can offer candidates in the process of trying to get them to sign the contract. We have this large database of progressives from around the country. It's around just probably 60,000. I haven't done a total count. At one point, it was very near 100,000, but I found out as I broke this down and reorganized it by state here. I took this whole week off from work in order to break this database down by state. There were a lot of duplicates, anywhere from 20 to 33%, depending on the state, of people who gave that pledge over and over again. So we'll be able to generate, hopefully, support for you from around the state and other candidates around the country, state by state, once they sign this contract, because that makes you one of the good guys. And when we have a CFAR candidate, we're going to go all out to make sure you guys get support, get donations, and more than anything else, to win your primary and help you in the general election.
Well, I appreciate that. Another thing that we have done because of NEA and AFT's endorsements is we have getting ready to do a big video blast, actually nationwide, hashtag send a teacher to Washington. And, we have millions and millions of members of the National Education Association, American Federation of Teachers, that'll reach. So hopefully between all of our groups and all of the like-minded people, that we will get support, not only monetarily, which is obviously necessary, but people will see the website, people will be willing to kick in and volunteer and do all the things that we need to do to unseat our current congressman.
Well, I mean, that's certainly something we want to do. And I entered again I did that for Bernie, and I did it again last year before the deadline, so that I will be able to carry petitions to help get you on the ballot around here in Ithaca. And hopefully this will serve to help other activists around the country get involved and reach out, ask candidates to sign the contract for American Renewal and get plugged in and help, get these left populist ideas as part of the next agenda in Congress. This is basically, while we need candidates to embrace this set of concepts and to sign the contract, this is actually a voters' movement. There is a voters' pledge of people who are saying, I'm only going to support a CFAR candidate, and that's it. And if I have to, I'll write in my own name. So this is something that is building, and at least in this congressional district, if and only if you win the primaries, then all this support we're building will go to you.
Well, I appreciate that. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't expect to win. So, it's an exciting time. I appreciate meeting you and talking to you and having this opportunity today. And I know we'll have many, many more after that.
I'm sure of it. Thanks for joining me, Rick.
Thank you so much, Victor.